One of the many great advantages of shooting digital, of course, is you can take lots of pictures and then decide if you like something or not. Well, here's a picture that I took in Boston, and honestly, I took a bunch of them, and this one just didn't work out the way I had planned. I was about to delete it, but I thought, you know, I'm just going to keep it hanging around because you never know. Because one of the things you can do with just about any photo is take advantage of this command called threshold. And what threshold does is it dramatically changes your photo. Take away all shades and all color, just gives you either black or white pixels. And as you start to move the sliders, you can get some pretty interesting looking effects in here. Like, look at all the bits of black and white in this area here. So let's just go somewhere kind of like that. And I'm going to take my marquee selection tool and just select a chunk of that to say this is the part I want and copy it. Now I have another document that I started working on here, and it's made up, as you can see here, as a bunch of layers. I'd like to keep the editability of all these layers, but make this look a little more unusual, a little weathered, a little roughened. So I'm going to select all my layers, and then I'll move this over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to use a command called new group from layers. Now this is CS2, of course, and Photoshop CS, you'd have to link them and choose new set from linked because they changed the name too. Alright, so now we have a group with all that stuff here. I'm going to add a layer mask to this group. And there it is. It's obviously, as always, just filled with white. What I'm going to do is Option or Alt click on it. That means I can actually view the layer mask. Now I'm going to paste that rough and crazy weird stuff that I did from my other document. Now at this point it's kind of hard to tell if it's the right size or not. So if you press the tilde key, which is the one just to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard, it goes into this kind of quick mask mode, so now you can see where it is. And you can see in this case it's not quite big enough. Let's move this out of the way a bit. So I need to scale the layer mask without affecting everything else. I need to unlink these two, make sure I'm still in the layer mask, press Command or Control T, and now I can scale this to be as big as I want. Of course, it doesn't really matter. I'm not really scaling anything noticeable because it's just a kind of a weird pattern. So I can deselect that. Now if we click back on our layer, we get this really roughened look. And of course, in some areas it's too much, but this is where we can start to experiment. For example, we could try selecting our layer mask again and pressing Command or Control I to invert the mask. Now that's even more intense, so that's probably not as good as we might want it to be. So let's just try something else here. We're going to put it back the way it was. I'm going to take this this group I should say, and duplicate the whole thing. So now I have two copies that are the same. Now, for example, I could inverse this one, and of course they're right on top of each other, so that's not really helping. Let's take our move tool and start to move, and now we're getting one mask masking one area and one mask masking the other. We could go up a little bit on this one. So now we're getting some more interesting results. This is just really to get you started, but what the point I want to make is now when you're out shooting photos, look at things a little differently. For example, now I find myself starting to actually shoot pictures specifically for and only for the purpose of making one of these threshold patterns. So here's an example, and I just literally saw a part right outside our parking lot and went, that might be interesting. Let's try it and see. So once again, I just shot the picture and then went into threshold and started playing and seeing now those are some interesting patterns in there, all different sorts of shades. Now the other thing you can do, which is kind of interesting, is to apply the threshold, do a little bit of Gaussian blur to bring some of the shades back in again. Not too much, just a little bit. And then go back and do threshold again and see what you get this time. It's going to make the pattern look quite a bit different and quite a bit coarser, if you like that kind of a look. So the main point I'm trying to make is when you're looking at photos, don't just, I'll just undo this back, don't just throw something out thinking I'll never be able to use this, because this threshold technique opens up just a whole bunch of possibilities for backgrounds, for borders, all kinds of things. And it works for just about every type of photo. Okay, well, not every type, but just about every type. I'm Dave Cross. We'll see you next time.